Hello and welcome to the next part of the Faculty and Mentor Guide. I'm James Rice, and today I'm joined by Jake Mihevc. Jake Mihevc is the Associate Dean of Business, Cybersecurity, and Computer Science here at Mohawk Valley Community College. He's also the Director of the NSA CAE, the Northeast Regional Resource Center, as well as one of the co-founders of the CNY Hackathon. Welcome, Jake. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, James.
So I wanted to start by having you share some of your backgrounds and knowledge and experience with what it was like to build the cybersecurity program here at Mohawk Valley Community College, and how that's how integrating the club, integrating the out of classroom type activities were really part of your efforts here. And if you could elaborate on some of your experiences there, I think that'd be really useful to hear about.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Our cybersecurity program started in 2013 and now is up to 160 students. So we did grow pretty rapidly, and it's been a great experience. We had a lot of help from our local industry professionals, such as some officers from the Air Force Research Lab who helped us with that hands-on practical element. And as we were getting started, what we saw was that the students really needed a way to really practice the craft in order to be interested, engaged, and kind of stay in a very rigorous degree program. Mm-hmm. So we started the hackathon in our first year. We had been working on it for a while, and I would suggest to anyone else out there to start small. We started with about 35 students, and always be ready for the unexpected. It's a complex thing to run in the background. There are a lot of really technical components that run. There are things that are unexpected and go wrong all the time. But if you can build that into the culture that, hey, this is something where things are always changing, and expect the unexpected as you do in the world of cybersecurity, the event really becomes pretty strong and something that everyone enjoys, and it reduces some of the kind of the tension of the competition. But we built the hackathon really was a way to get hands-on experience. As we saw when students take networking and operating systems and coding, that can be pretty dense material, and without a way to practice it on an ongoing basis and configure interfaces and understand the real world implications of misconfiguration, it really was just kind of going over their heads, and they weren't retaining it the way that we wanted them to. So the hackathon, once per semester, the students now know that they're going to get a chance to compete and to really test those real life skills. And that's really what has given the club some momentum as well. We started the club right away, and the club, they just didn't have a mission. You know, they wanted to learn hacking tools. They liked hanging out with each other, but they weren't accomplishing a whole lot. When I tried to give the club some structure, it started to seem like a class, which was not productive. So giving them a mission, giving them the hackathon to think of every semester, really built that club into something that started with 10 students and is now at 30. And we have that mentorship and that ongoing mission feel to the club.
Yeah, that's quite a bit there. I guess one thing I'd like to kind of follow up on would be, you indicated there that private industry or AFRL, Air Force Research Labs, played an important role in contributing to the hackathon. Could you expand a little bit as how private industry, someone outside of academics, helped to build the hackathon?
Sure. Well, the main thing that the Air Force Research Lab contributed was the scoring engine. And while that's something that anyone could develop, the fact that we had people helping us and taking that kind of heavy lift off of us was really helpful. So there's a scoring engine that runs in the background and monitors what services are up on what IP address, and logs that to a visual display that can be shown in each classroom. So they see when they're scoring points and when they stop scoring points, and that allows them to, in real time, see the effects of the changes that they're making. So that was critical. We've also had tons of help from companies like AIS in our area that are really, this is kind of a dream come true from an academic administrator's point of view, because they're designing vulnerable operating systems that test the students' skills that they want to see when they hire them. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to directly make sure that these students are ready for the workforce. And then we as faculty members are observing these what the industry is designing, and we know we've got to get our students ready for that. Mm-hmm. So rather than an advisory board that meets once a year and can be a little bit dry and not everybody wants to go to, mm-hmm. now industry are saying, hey, faculty, this is what you need to get your students ready for if they want jobs. And we can then reverse engineer that into our classes. So in addition to them providing the substance of the event, which is critical and crucial and greatly appreciated, it's a way for us to keep our programs fresh.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point to kind of reflect on, how sometimes the more mature students are very interested in how does what I'm doing lead to a job, and where are the connections there. So being able to get them involved at the hackathon level for that is really interesting, all the way down to the less mature student who just wants to see how am I doing, how am I scoring compared to the person sitting next to me, and I just want to win and beat the person sitting next to me, and that's all that matters to them. So
sure, we had to do a lot of work on managing that exact concept. Mm-hmm. To what degree does competition need to be an element of the event? Because the competition is what drives them to be interested, and it really gets them engaged and keeps them coming back. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we don't want them so focused on the competitive element that they're not learning, that they're not building the skills that they want to develop. And at the last event, I actually explicitly stated that at the beginning of the day of competition. I went up there in front of 110 students that were there for the event, and I let them know that you are not here to win. And the competitive element drives it, but you're there to be better. The students are there to learn specific skills. And for the more technical students, they're there to learn teamwork. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of stressed that by saying all these sponsors that are here that are developing these vulnerable operating systems, if you walk those halls, yes, they have wonderful engineers that are very talented, but they're all there because they help each other. They become good teammates and get good jobs and have great careers because it's a tough field. And when you run up against a roadblock, you need someone there to support you and say, hey, try this, or that's where you're going wrong there. And that's a skill that many of our more technically gifted students need to build, and the hackathon is there for them for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really consistent too with when I spoke with Nick Morente about this, about building the black team. He stressed, technical knowledge was important, and he was monitoring students as they're graduating and coming into the industry, but the social interactions is what really made the team an effective team, and especially I think that ties in a lot with your first point. When something goes wrong, I don't want to be sitting next to someone to whom I can't work with. I really need to have that social interaction there. So I guess maybe if you could elaborate on that a little bit. What do you spend your time on now, kind of advising students or kind of organizing the students when it comes to those types of social interactions?
Well, there is a lot to it, and we pay a lot of attention to how the event is unfolding. And we never publish a schedule that says lunch is at this time or these things are happening at this exact time, because we want to have the flexibility to say, okay, the teams are really clicking now, so we're going to let this thing run for a little bit longer before we take a break. But we've learned a number of different ways to do that. One way to improve the social interaction is for two consecutive hackathons, we have made the rule that team captains can't touch the keyboard.
Oh, wow.
And what we were finding is that sometimes the better students, the more technically advanced students, they just wanted to win, and they would just sit down and they would just start hacking, and they weren't explaining to the new students what they were doing or how it fit into an overall strategy for the day. And we weren't getting the value out of the event that we wanted. So by banning the better students from touching the keyboards, they now had to vocalize. They now had to say out loud, this is what we're doing and why. I'm going to say these things to you, you type it in. So it really made that learning event come together and brought the teams together for a few semesters. After that, we found that we were getting more and more talented students. Their skills were just growing because of the hackathon. And now, rather than 2 or 3 students that really know what they're doing, we now have 6 or 7 students out of 10 that really they know what's going on. So we improvised and we said, okay, now we're going to let the captains touch the keyboards again. We weren't afraid to change the event. And we're always doing that, and we're always looking at ways we break up some teams, we combine some teams sometimes. when we were concerned about how female students were doing, we did one semester, we combined all the females into one team and let them work. And it was really interesting, and that team actually ended up winning the event that semester. So we were always improvising and always trying new things in order to bring about that teamwork aspect. And the longevity is important. It's possible that a student will come to one hackathon and their team will not click. And they might not have a great day because they don't work very well together. But every hackathon, if there are 10 teams, 3 or 4 of these teams really click, and everybody's helping each other, and they all take care of their own areas, and they don't want to take a break for lunch because they're doing so well and having so much fun. At the end of the day, they didn't even know each other at the beginning of the day, and they're hugging each other and high-fiving, and they've got friends for life. So we want them to have that good team experience, and if they keep coming back, and we know that they do, we know that if they come to 6 or 7 hackathons over the course of their 4 years in our region, in academics, they're going to have 1 or 2 of those events that show them what it's like to be a part of a great team.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How the thing I guess that really strikes me is this, as it emphasizes your point of start small and realize that just like an academic career, one of these events is not a one-time thing. It needs to kind of be an experience over time. And sometimes you'll have good experiences, sometimes you'll have less favorable experiences, let's say, but both of them can kind of be learning experiences that you can kind of run with. And you need both. You need the frustration and you need the win, but you'll get those over the course of an academic career if you kind of stay at this.
You do, and one of the last things I would recommend that we integrated was, at the end of the day, after all the stress is over and after a few prizes have been given out, we have every team stand up and talk about their day. And there are 10 teams, and we ask them to say some things that went well, something that went poorly, and ideally something funny that happened during the day. And it brings the whole event together as a community. And because every team has some things that went well and they want to brag about a little bit, and some things that didn't go well. And sometimes it's all nothing went well. Some teams really do not do well at this event. But that at the very end allows the shared experience of, hey, this team did something really interesting and really cool. They moved a web server off of a machine that had been taken down, and they put it on their router this time because we didn't have rules against that, and they started scoring that way. And then all 110 students saw that innovative thing that team had done. And the frustrations are the same way. Well, the red team got into our system early and we couldn't get them out, and we tried all these different things, but it was really tough, and we really learned about what not to do. So that reporting out shares the experience and makes it like something that everyone can be a part of.
Yeah, and I guess I was wondering if you could follow up then on that, seeing how this is hopefully an experience over time, over an academic career. Maybe you could reflect on some of the places where the CNY Hackathon started and kind of doing a looking back, maybe the 2020 hindsight for the students, for the teams, and for the organizers. What really should be their goal for the first time that they're competing, let's say in a regional hackathon? What should be their mentality? What should be their goal? What should they hope to accomplish from the start?
Well, I think the first goal is getting students, making sure they have a good experience. It's really the students recruit other students. They're the ones that need to come back. It needs to be something that they see value in. They need to feel like they got better at something. They need to feel like they had a little bit of fun. They need to feel like they built some relationships. The food's got to be pretty good. I mean, it's really the student experience is where you start small and you build up from that. They need to want to come back the next time. But once you build that and you build that infrastructure, you'll find that industry professionals and faculty members, once they see that the event has some momentum and it's really popular and it has potential, you'll see more and more people want to get involved. And the industry participation is really helpful. Right now, it costs us about $11,000 a year to run both events. And we raise about that much money from the industry in addition to their engineering time and hours. So it's become a self-sustaining event in that regard, that everyone sees the value in it. And the industry professionals, they now come to our job fair. So in addition to designing the exercises, they're there to recruit the students that they see work and do well, and we have a direct recruiting stream. The other thing it's done for us as a small region between Mohawk Valley Community College, Utica College, and SUNY Polytechnic, we now, our students at MVCC have met the students at these four-year schools, and they've been teammates with them. And when they transfer to those four-year schools, there's some continuity between what we're doing here. And they know people in the programs, they know the hackathons coming up, and it's been something that's brought the entire cybersecurity area together and allowed us to collaborate in a way that isn't always that common in academics and isn't always that common over a large region.
Yeah, I find that really interesting and a really key point, really from the student perspective. I certainly have noticed how when you can tell, if I go in and I tell students about some awesome event that's upcoming, they're going to sit there and go, yeah, okay, maybe I agree, maybe not. But when the student tells another student, that's really when you get a lot of the traction. And I think that point that you just made there really carries over as well. When the student can have an interaction with someone at another university or at another college, again, that's going to be much more valuable than a faculty visit, let's say, when you have that student-to-student interaction. So I can see how that really, really benefits the student there.
It sure does, and they get to they're considering which local school to go to. Mm-hmm. And this allows them to have conversations with students in both programs and really self-select the one that's the best program for them, and it eliminates a lot of churn that's not helpful to anyone. So it's been very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess I'll leave you with the last word. Are there any other last piece of advice that you might want to pass along to someone who either starting a club, getting involved in the hackathon, et cetera, making these efforts, trying to reach out to businesses? Any topic that you pick, any last piece of advice you might have for someone?
I would just say that we've been lucky to have the Central New York Hackathon, and I've been somewhat lucky in my career to be in a position to develop the event. And our college made a director level position, which had a course reduction, which allowed me to put a lot of time and effort into organizing the back end of the event and putting things together. So it was a major undertaking, and I couldn't have done it without great co-founders that all bring different things to the event. But I will say it's a lot of work, but to see the results, it has been well worth the effort to get the thing rolling. Just to see the student outcomes and what it's done to all of our programs in the area and how it's kind of elevated all of the cybersecurity education in the region. It's well worth the effort, and it's worth taking the leap, even though it is a major undertaking just to get the ball rolling.
Well, Jake, I want to thank you for joining me today, and we'll continue on with these kind of interview series, trying to get more tips and tricks for lessons learned for the faculties and mentor here who are joining the region and joining the effort. So thanks again, Jake.
Thank you, James.